chances are you could be setting yourself up for failure, or your business could be growing, but your profit could be shrinking because you haven't set targets that actually align with what you need to be profitable. So here's a common problem I see with a lot of law firms is the law firm is getting bigger, but the partners and the owners are getting broker. And unfortunately, this happens to a lot of law firms. And today I want to talk about 3 reasons why this tends to happen. And we're going to go step by step in these so I can break it down as what is the topic and give some recommendations on what you can do to make sure this doesn't happen in your law firm. So, for context, I've had a couple conversations with many law firms where we talk about what's going on in their firm. And many of them say things like, you know what, my firm is growing, but I feel like I made more money when my firm was smaller. It's like we're growing, we're adding people, we're doing more work, and I'm not making as much money as I was before. And I say that is unfortunately something common. And one of the things that we notice when we start digging in is one of the reasons may be due to timing. Now, the timing factor is a temporary one, but it does happen. And a lot of times firms are just aren't prepared for it. And when I say timing, meaning when you hire someone, there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve because someone is not going to come in and be ready to hit the ground. Even if you hire a very experienced like attorney or a very experienced paralegal, there is still some type of learning curve. Now, what I tell law firms is what they should do is we need to really sit down and really think about this. When do we expect them to be, I guess, say 50% proficient or 75% or 100%? And how do we actually communicate that to them? See, I prefer to set the expectations from the very beginning. So if a new attorney is starting, it's saying, hey, by week number 2, I expect you to be able to support X number of cases. By week number 3, this many. By week number 4, hey, you should kind of start being in your rhythm to be able to support X number of cases and handle these type of things without my support. What I usually see with a lot of law firms is they may have done a good job of writing out some processes or creating some videos. The person starts and they walk through those videos, they go through their training, but then they kind of slowly move into the legal work. Or maybe if you're fortunate, you get someone who's really aggressive about diving into the legal work. But instead of just kind of leaving it up to chance, I say, let's be very clear. What is your expectation for them at week 3? What is your expectation at week 4? And when do you expect them to be fully productive and independent on their own? And then we need to have a conversation with that person so that they know this is the expectation for you. When I've seen law firms do that, that timing factor where they're spending more money but not seeing the return yet, that tends to reduce because they were very upfront about the expectations. Now, the second one that I usually see is insufficient goals. This is a number of reasons why law firms set insufficient goals for their legal team or even in the areas of their marketing or any area of their business. It's a lot of times when they're picking what the goals will be or what the metrics will be is they've never actually gone through and done the math. Or let's say they've never actually worked with a CFO or someone who understands the data to help them figure out what should the goals be for your firm. Because most will just look at what did I do when I started working and practicing law, or what did we do at the last firm that I worked at, or maybe they went to a conference and they heard what targets other people set. Well, what you really want to do is you want to look at your own business and you really want to understand what are the goals that we need for this business to make financial sense. So I sat with a law firm recently, and the law firm told me like what their staff looked like. They had, one attorney, there was the managing partner, there were 2 paralegals. And what we did is we went through the math and said, what does everyone's goals need to look like in order for this business to make financial sense? And we went through everyone's billable rate, we went through the amount of hours, and then we also laid out, hey, in order for you to be able to support this many legal hours or this much legal work, you need X number of cases. Now, that firm has a very clear perspective on what their goals need to be. They know what people need to be working on, they know how many cases they need roughly on average, because we know it's not going to be every case is not exactly the same, but they have some idea of what their target should be. Now, if you've never gone through an exercise like that, chances are you could be setting yourself up for failure, or your business could be growing, but your profit could be shrinking because you haven't set targets that actually align with what you need to be profitable. Now, the third area that I want to talk about is really about knowing your break even and your return on investment point. Now, this one is takes a little bit more calculation to figure out, but I'll break it down like this. Break even is, what do we need to do to make sure that we are covering all of our costs? So, for example, if you're hiring a new attorney, the question I would ask is, okay, how many new cases do you need to bring on for us to be able to cover this attorney's cost? Because when you're bringing on a new staff member, that is a new cost that you're adding on top of the firm. And whenever you are adding costs in any area of your business, a really good practice will be is to ask yourself, how many additional cases do we need to cover this additional cost? Because if you start to think like that, what it will do is it will force you to understand, hey, how do we stay ahead to make sure that our profit is growing as the firm grows? Because what ends up happening in many cases for law firms is they bring on a new employee because they're like, hey, we have some more new casework and we need some, additional hands to help take care of this. Well, they bring on these new people, but they've never actually really thought through it is, well, maybe you didn't need to bring on a full-time person. Maybe you only needed to hire a part-time attorney, or maybe you only needed to hire a contract attorney to help you through. Maybe it's one peak time in the year. Maybe things get really busy for about 2 months and then they go back down to the normal pace of things. Well, if you've never actually gone through and kind of looked at the math and said, hey, if we add this new attorney, we need to add an additional 2 cases every single month in order to cover this additional cost. Well, the thing is, if you're not looking at it that way, chances are you're probably bringing on new costs and you're not increasing your revenue fast enough to actually stay a profitable firm. So eventually, what happens is your business grows, you add more people, your staff gets paid, but then you, as the partner or the owner, actually get paid less and less over time. And this is why I advise any firm to avoid this whole, bigger but broker scenario that many law firms find themselves in, is you want to go through these types of numbers. Now, if you're not a numbers person, this is where a CFO really comes in handy, and they can really help you figure this type of stuff out. Like our firm, like we offer bookkeeping and CFO services. So we walk people through this all the time. And a lot of times what we end up doing is a service we call data analytics, where we go into their system, we pull all the numbers to help them see. So they have a very easy roadmap. So on a weekly basis, they get a scorecard that they can easily look at to say, hey, are we on track? I know I need to have X number of cases. We need to have X amount of legal work done in order for this to make financial sense. And when you have that level of clarity, it makes it so much easier for you to run your business and for you to make sure that as you grow, that as an owner and a partner, your profit will actually grow instead of shrinking. So thanks for tuning in. And if you love some of the tips and the things that we're sharing, make sure you hit the subscribe button and leave us a comment, because if there is a topic that you are interested in, let us know, because we may be making more videos to address your specific questions or your topics, or you can email us as well, and we will be glad to help where we can. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Law Firm and Finance Show, where we give you great content that helps you build a more successful law firm. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on all platforms and follow us for more content.